America, it's election season again. And you know what that means, political ads that could curdle milk. The airwaves are filled with promises, accusations, and enough drama to rival a soap opera. And of course, there are enough hot air balloon metaphors to make you wish you were riding in one, just to get away from it all. The stress of it all can be overwhelming, making you long for a simpler time. First up, immigration. It's a topic that always gets people riled up, like finding a spider in your mailbox or realizing you agreed to a second date with someone you barely know. The debate is as old as the country itself, yet it never seems to get any easier. Trump, back for round two, is still banging the border security drum. He's promising a wall so high it'll block out the sun and a deportation force that makes your local parking enforcement look like a bunch of pacifists. His rhetoric is as fiery as ever, aiming to rally his base with promises of stringent measures. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is trying to walk a tightrope thinner than a strand of angel hair pasta. She's trying to balance border security with compassion, which, let's be honest, is like trying to juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope, while the tightrope is on fire. Her challenge is to find a middle ground that satisfies both sides of the debate. It's a tough sell, and the outcome could very well decide who gets the keys to the White House. The stakes are high, and every word, every policy proposal is being scrutinized under a microscope. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and unfortunately neither candidate seems interested in offering anything beyond the usual sound bites. The discussions often feel superficial, leaving voters craving for more substantial solutions. It's all a bit, well, depressing really, like realizing your favorite ice cream flavor has been discontinued. The sense of disappointment is palpable, as people look for hope in a sea of uncertainty. Let's talk identity politics, shall we? Specifically Kamala Harris, a woman who's breaking barriers like she's got a battering ram made of firsts. First female vice president, first black vice president, first Asian American vice president. It's a list longer than my last grocery bill. For some, she's a symbol of progress, a beacon of hope in a political landscape that's often about as diverse as a saltine cracker. For others, well, let's just say they see her as a walking, talking example of woke culture gone wild, a threat to the very fabric of American apple pie, probably while wearing a tan suit. The reality, as always, is far more nuanced. Harris's identity is both a strength and a weakness, a source of inspiration for some and a target for others. And in this election, where every vote counts more than a toddler counts goldfish crackers, her ability to navigate these choppy waters could be the difference between victory and defeat. The economy? Oh boy, don't even get me started. It's like that friend who shows up to a party already 3 sheets to the wind, ready to pick a fight with a lamppost. Inflation is higher than a giraffe on stilts, interest rates are climbing faster than a squirrel on a sugar rush, and let's not even talk about the job market. It's enough to make you want to bury your life savings in the backyard and become a survivalist. Trump, of course, claims he can fix it, just like he claimed he could build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Harris, meanwhile, is trying to convince voters that she's got a plan too, but it's all a bit vague, like a fortune cookie that just says things will work out. Maybe. In the meantime, the rest of us are just trying to keep our heads above water, hoping that this economic storm passes soon. Let's talk foreign policy, shall we? It's messy, it's complicated. It's basically the geopolitical equivalent of trying to untangle Christmas lights while blindfolded and wearing oven mitts. We've got the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, which is like watching a slow-motion train wreck where nobody seems to know where the brakes are. Then there's China, flexing its economic muscles like a bodybuilder at a swimsuit competition, making us all wonder if they're about to start charging rent for using the global trade routes. And let's not forget the ever-present tension in the Middle East, which is about as stable as a Jenga tower built on a roller coaster. Both Trump and Harris are trying to sound tough, promising to stand up for American interests, but the reality is there are no easy answers. It's a diplomatic minefield, and one wrong step could have global consequences, so, no pressure. Section 5. The rise of the machines, AI, regulation, and the future. Remember when the biggest technological threat we faced was trying to figure out how to rewind a VHS tape without accidentally recording over your dad's favorite John Hughes movie? Those were the days when our biggest worry was a tape getting stuck in the player. Yeah, me too. Those were simpler times, filled with neon colors and big hair. Now, we've got artificial intelligence to worry about, which is developing faster than a teenager on a caffeine bender. It's like the future is arriving at warp speed. On one hand, AI has the potential to revolutionize everything from healthcare to transportation, making our lives easier and more efficient, which is great, unless you're a doctor or a taxi driver whose jobs might be at risk. On the other hand, it also has the potential to become self-aware and enslave us all, which is less great. The idea of a robot uprising is the stuff of nightmares. Unless you're into that sort of thing, in which case more power to you. Maybe you'll be the first to welcome our new robot overlords. The big question is, how do we regulate this stuff? It's a complex issue with no easy answers. Do we go full Terminator on it, shutting it down before it even gets started? That might be a bit extreme. Or do we embrace the unknown, hoping that this whole AI thing doesn't backfire spectacularly? It's a gamble either way. Your guess is as good as mine. The future is uncertain, and we're all just trying to figure it out. Actually, scratch that. Your guess is probably better than mine. I'm no expert. I once tried to make ramen noodles in a coffee maker. Not my finest hour. So, when it comes to AI, maybe we should leave it to the professionals. Section 6. Made in America? Trade wars and supply chain struggles? Remember that time you ordered something online and it took approximately 17 years to arrive? Yeah, it felt like an eternity, didn't it? Yeah, that's the global supply chain for you. A system so intricate and vast, it can make your head spin. It's a complex web of interconnectedness that makes the human circulatory system look like a game of hopscotch. Every product, every item is part of this massive global dance. And thanks to a delightful cocktail of factors, including a global pandemic, a war in Europe, and a general sense of impending doom, the system is more fragile than ever. It's about as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane. One wrong move and the whole thing could come crashing down. Trump, never one to miss an opportunity to point fingers, blames everyone but himself. He claims it's all someone else's fault. Harris, meanwhile, is trying to reassure everyone that she's got a plan, a strategy to fix things, but it's all a bit fuzzy on the details, like trying to explain quantum physics after a six-pack of beer. It's complicated and hard to grasp. The bottom line is, nobody really knows what's going on. The situation is chaotic and clarity is in short supply, and we're all just hoping for the best, clinging to a sliver of optimism in these uncertain times. In the meantime, maybe we should all invest in some good walking shoes. They might come in handy sooner than we think, because if this whole global trade thing collapses, we might be hoofing it to work. And who knows, maybe we'll even get some exercise out of it. Section 7. A planet in peril, climate change on the campaign trail. Ah, climate change. The ultimate elephant in the room. Or, more accurately, the rapidly melting glacier in the room that we're all trying very hard to ignore because thinking about it too much will make us want to curl up in a ball and cry. Trump, in a move that surprises absolutely no one, continues to insist that climate change is a hoax, like those emails from Nigerian princes offering to share their vast fortunes. Harris, on the other hand, actually acknowledges that climate change is a real and present danger, which is a refreshing change of pace, like finding a $20 bill in your pocket right when you need it most. The problem is, even if we could all agree on the basic science, actually doing something about it is another matter entirely. It's like trying to herd cats, or toddlers, or, politicians, which is to say, good luck with that. Section 8, Healthcare on the Line, from Medicare to reproductive rights, healthcare in America. It's a system that's so convoluted and expensive, it makes you wonder if they hired Kafka to write the billing codes. Trump, in his infinite wisdom, wants to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, presumably with something that involves leeches, crystals, and good old-fashioned prayer. Harris, on the other hand, is pushing for Medicare for all, which sounds great in theory, but in practice, it's about as popular as a skunk at a garden party. And then there's the whole issue of reproductive rights, which is about as settled as a mudslide on a rainy day. Basically, it's a mess. And unfortunately, it's a mess that directly impacts the lives of millions of Americans. So, no pressure or anything. Section 9. The disinformation age, lies, spin, and the battle for truth. Remember truth, that quaint concept that used to be the bedrock of, reality? Yeah, me neither. Because we live in the age of disinformation where up is down, black is white, and facts are about as reliable as a weather forecast in a hurricane. Social media, once hailed as the great democratizer, has become the Wild West of misinformation, a place where conspiracy theories flourish like mushrooms after a rain shower and where political discourse has been reduced to shouting matches in the comments section. It's enough to make you want to swear off the internet entirely and move to a remote cabin in the woods. But then, of course, you'd have to worry about 5G towers and government microchips in your vaccines, so maybe not. Section 10, an election like no other. Biden's out, Trump's back, America's confused, and so here we are, folks. The 2024 election. It's an election like no other, featuring a rematch nobody asked for between two candidates who are about as popular as a root canal. On one hand, we've got Trump back for round two, like a bad case of heartburn after a particularly spicy burrito. On the other hand, we've got Harris, trying to convince voters that she's not just another cog in the political machine. It's a tough sell to be sure, but hey.
Hey, are you still smiling? Smiling while scrolling through your feed? Forget the reels. This ain't about you or your family or the latest TikTok dance. It's about a vote, just one vote. But if you understood the power of that single choice, you will come to know that how many children you could stop from crying, how many women you could save, how many mouths you could feed. Would you reconsider? Your vote matters.